What is something that right now you're actively focused on, thinking about, measuring, trying to improve, that formerly, like 3-4 years ago, you didn't even either know about, or you certainly weren't thinking about and worrying about and measuring it? Let me give an example. Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. A lot of people are increasingly investing in cryptocurrency, even though they were aware of it and maybe even interested in it 3, 4, 5 years ago. So a question is, what stopped the former version of them to take action on something that now they're really serious about? It doesn't even have to be cryptocurrency. Let me give an example. YouTube. YouTube is something that I wanted to do for 3, 4, 5 years, but never got serious about it until last year. And so I could ask myself, what about my former self was not taking action? What was blocking me from taking action? So think about something that you're really focused on right now. You're really trying to work on, you're really trying to improve, that your former self was either unaware of or not even working on. Now in this video, I'm going to give you the multiple levels of how to learn, how to become proficient at something. And also it'll help you to think more about your future self. So let's start with the top level. The top level is that you're completely unaware of something. So for example, you could be unaware of cryptocurrency, just as an example, or unaware of investing in real estate, or unaware of, whatever it may be. The second level, outside of a lack of awareness, is becoming aware of something. In order to become aware of something, it has to exist. And so you could become aware of some possibility. It could be that you could be an entrepreneur. It could be that you could travel the world, whatever it may be. You become aware of it, but just because you're aware of it doesn't mean you're interested in it. The next level is interest. You actually have interest in that thing, but again, just because you're interested in something doesn't mean you're actively engaging in it. You may be interested in a lot of things that you don't spend any time doing. And so from interest to turn into action, you need to have a few things happen. You could, for example, a lot of people are interested in making money, or a lot of people are interested in becoming an author, or doing a lot of different things, but they never actually go from interest to taking action and getting serious about it. And so you got to ask yourself, what is stopping you from taking action? What's blocking you? Some form of internal block or external block or mindset block that's stopping you from getting to that next level. One of the things that needs to happen in order to go from interest to action is that you have to have some form of success story. You've got to be able to see success or believe in success. Like think, for example, of someone who's trying to overcome an addiction. They may be interested in overcoming their addiction, but they never actually take action because they don't believe they can actually do it. Or someone may be interested in investing in cryptocurrency, but they may not take action because they don't know if it's possible, or they don't know if it's successful. In times past, people didn't invest because there was not enough evidence of success. And if you don't see evidence of success, or if you don't see a path to getting where you want to go, then you're not going to take action because you don't believe you can anyways. One of the requirements for motivation and even for hope is that first off, you can see an outcome, you want it, but then you can see a path to getting there. You've got to believe that path. It just can't be a random path. You've got to believe that path. And part of that path may come from getting evidence from other people that it's possible, or from you dabbling enough or getting enough information to saying, oh, I can see how this works. One of the reasons, looking back on my former self, because for a long time I was a blogger. I wrote lots of blog posts. They've been read literally over 100 million times. But in asking myself, what were the reasons why I wasn't willing to start making videos? Just as an example. There were a few. One of them is that at the past versions of me who maybe would have been interested in making videos like this, I didn't do it. I didn't go from interest to action because, for one, I didn't have an investment mindset, investing in people. One of the reasons why I wouldn't want to do this personally is because I don't want to edit the videos, learn YouTube, learn thumbnails and all that stuff. There's 1,000 things involved that I didn't want to do, and I didn't have this philosophy, the Who Not How philosophy. This is a book I wrote with Dan Sullivan. And the Who Not How philosophy has really taught me how to get who's involved rather than me doing the how. So I learned how to invest in myself, invest in others, and to realize I don't need to do all the hows. And so once I learned that philosophy, and once I got the investment mindset, and once I started, being willing to invest in other people and getting help, then making these videos became a possibility for me. Whereas in the past, without those mindsets and without that willingness, I was just procrastinating because I didn't want to do all the how myself. So that's a breakthrough. That was a tipping point moment for me, which then opened up huge new doors for me. One of the reasons why I wouldn't have invested 4 or 5 years ago in, for example, cryptocurrency, even though I've heard all about it, is I didn't know enough about it. I didn't have a tipping point experience that showed me I could succeed or showed me the relevance. One of the reasons why you might be aware of something but not even interested is because you don't see the relevance. But the more aware you become of something, the more you see it's relevant. It's kind of like the internet back in the 90s. People probably didn't see its relevance. But once you get a little bit more information, you can see its relevance. That makes you interested and maybe even leads to intense action. But I just wasn't aware of it. Again, I didn't have an investment mindset, and so I wasn't investing in my future. Back in the day, I was either focused on school or something like that. And so I want you to look back on, so for example, the things you're focused on right now, the things you're actively focused on, measuring, trying to improve. What were the essentially roadblocks for you doing those things in the past? But there are further levels. So just going from interest to action isn't enough. You may be taking action. You may be going to the gym as an example, or you may be reading books, but action isn't very good. You can take a lot of action and make no improvement. You know that you're making improvement when you start measuring. So that's the next level, is from action to active measuring. So if, for example, you start measuring your diet, start measuring like your macros or whatnot, or measuring your runs. And with measurement comes the active measuring of your current results, but also likely having measurable goals that you're trying to work towards. So you could have goals when it comes to action, but if you're not measuring it actively, then you're not serious about it. You can only manage what you're measuring. And so when it comes to your eating, for example, you can know you're serious about it if you're actually and actively measuring what you're eating. You're measuring what you're eating. You can know you're serious about your money, as an example, if you're measuring your savings, your costs, your investments, how much you're returning on your investments. Once you start measuring it, you can get serious about it. And so from action to measurement, then the next level from there is accountability. Not only are you actually measuring it, but you're reporting that progress. According to Pearson's law, which is a statistical principle, whatever you measure improves, but whatever you measure and report improves exponentially. So you go from actively measuring something to measuring and reporting it to someone else. It could be to an accountability partner, it could be to a team, but you know that you're serious about something when you're actively measuring it and when you have accountability towards that, like you're reporting it. Could be reporting it to your team, to shareholders, whatever it is. That's a high level. The final level is actually system design or environment design. Not only are you accountable, but you've now designed a system around that measurable. So for example, me creating YouTube videos. I know I'm serious if I'm not only measuring it, but I also am reporting it regularly to others. I've got some form of accountability, and now I'm designing a system around doing it more effectively. I'm designing my life around optimizing for this or for whatever goal I want, whether it's running marathons. And so you got to ask yourself, the reason this level thing is crazy is because right now, there are things that you're completely unaware of that your future self is actively measuring. I don't know what it is. Whatever your future self is, they may be actively measuring. They may even have accountability and systems around certain things that really matter to them. And you're just totally unaware of it. There's the great Chinese proverb that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. The only way you can stop being so ignorant, and we're all ignorant, by the way. Your current self is very ignorant, and your future self knows more than you, just like your former self was ignorant. Your former self didn't know things now that are super important to you and valuable to you. One of the things, as an example, that I'm actively measuring and caring about is the time I spend with my kids. I've got older kids now, and they're playing tennis and things like that, and I'm measuring their success, or I'm thinking about it. I'm helping them get into competitions and just, helping them enjoy it. And so I'm measuring things that my former self was just not even thinking about. And sometimes rightfully so. My former self was thinking about other things like graduating school, etc. My former self back when I was 18 years old was playing lots of World of Warcraft. And so the thing I was measuring was my progress in the game. And so it's kind of funny to look at what you were measuring and focused on in the past, what you're measuring and focused on right now, but you also want to think, what is your future self measuring and focusing on that right now you may not even be thinking about? You may be aware of it, but awareness might not have led to interest or action. And the sooner you can start thinking about your future self and what they would want, the sooner you can stop being ignorant. Because right now you're focused on whatever you're focused on, which is totally fine. But the question is, if you got clear on what your future self wanted and what they were focused on, you could maybe stop being so ignorant of that. You could start reading books on that or learning that thing or starting to get skills and capabilities in that area so you can start taking baby steps and eventually starting the compound effect of getting good at that thing. Right now, we're all ignorant of a lot of things, and your future self probably would like you to start thinking about certain things that you're currently ignorant of. Maybe you're aware of it but not interested, or maybe you're not even aware of it, you're just blind to it. And so if you start thinking, well, where do I want to be? What does my future self want? What are they measuring actively? Then you can start becoming less ignorant. You can start taking action, maybe reading books, getting more exposure. And then maybe you could start actively measuring, investing in that thing, measuring it, and then getting accountability towards it. And that leads you to more of an approach orientation towards life. Often we're ignorant because we're not really thinking about that thing. We're so focused on what we want, or we're just distracting ourselves. I mean, think about it. How much of your time is spent distracting yourself from reality? Whereas if you got clear on what your future self was measuring, you could start actively approaching that thing. You could start learning it, reading books, and start actually becoming less ignorant. And then you can become more aware. You can see its relevance. You can start seeing success criteria. You can start seeing a possibility for success and a path towards where you want to go. Or you could just spend the next year or 2 or 5 distracting yourself and wasting your time. Or you can get clear on what you want and you can start becoming less ignorant, start seeing a path, start seeing its relevance, start measuring it, start improving it, and getting where you really want to go. So it's a really cool, crazy thought that your future self is actively measuring and caring about things that right now you may either be ignorant of or just aware of but not interested in. And the sooner you start thinking about it, and the sooner you start becoming less ignorant, the sooner you start getting more of a scope and a path, then the sooner you can start taking action and start measuring and start improving on that so that you can become who you want to be. So that's a great question, is what are you measuring right now that your former self wasn't even thinking about? What is your future self measuring that right now you're not thinking about? And if you're not thinking about it, what can you start doing to start becoming more aware of it and finding that evidence of success and that path to success so that you can then have the confidence to start taking action and eventually start measuring and building accountability towards? That is the system of going from ignorant and unaware to a level of pure performance. You're completely ignorant of something, you then become aware of it, you then become interested in it because you see its relevance, you then start taking action on it once you've seen evidence of success, and once you start to develop enough knowledge that you can see some form of pathway to get there. From action, and action is not enough, you then go to measuring, and you know you're serious about something when you start measuring it. You start to get really serious about it and dialed in. From measuring, you start getting accountability, and from accountability, you design the environment and the system around it so that it just becomes a core aspect of who you are in your life, and your life becomes built around that thing. Whether it be, for example, your faith, whether it be your business, whether it be your relationship, you start building your life and your identity now around this new thing that you're serious about. And your future self will be focused on and actively measuring and working towards things that right now you may not even be aware of. The sooner you start thinking about what your future self cares about and is worried about, the sooner you can start focusing on learning that and becoming less ignorant. And ultimately, you can start taking action towards the things that your future self would love you to start taking action towards. I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy. You can get the next video right here to help you become your ideal future self. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Down below is my free peak state checklist. It's a checklist for morning routines that will help you get into a peak state. Over 800,000 people have downloaded it. Links right down below. Have an amazing day.